Describe in your own words what makes a great software engineer, a great developer. What sets, because obviously we've seen these numbers like if you're
Yeah.
in the top 10, you're as good as several different developers. But in your own experience, what do you think of those traits that make for a great engineer?
Well, I don't know if I can express what makes it great, but we talked about that engineers tend to think a little bit differently. That even if AI is the end all be all to all of our problems, not everybody thinks the same way.
Yeah.
And as an engineer, when I'm thinking about the world, when I'm driving somewhere, I'm kind of looking at traffic patterns and gaps in the flow in front of me, and I'm like thinking a couple of steps ahead. I'm not just reacting to, I need to get over eventually. It's like, no, I can see the traffic on the right has stopped, so I'm going to switch to the left lane and get there a little bit quicker. It's
Mhm.
it's just having this visibility of the bigger picture. When we think about the architectures and not just the implementation details. And I think that's going to be some things that are probably going to resurface. We had the big UML revolution in the 90s that kind of disappeared over time because a lot of that upfront work went away when we could start building systems faster.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the documentation in the UML was in reaction to, well, we're not going to see the results of the system for months or years. Can we talk about it on paper today?
Yeah.
Well, now we can get the whole system in an hour, but how do we start understanding what that system looks like?
Mm.
And again, that goes back to the tools, the supporting features of the system, and not just if I punch this button, what does it do in reaction to that? What is actually going on under the hood?
Yeah.
And I think engineers have a lot of that. Let me lift the hood and see what's actually occurring there mentality.
I like that. It reminds me of one of my earlier projects I had to just take over from someone else who had to move off as a consultant. And most of my time was spent trying to undo the fact that they had just used the wrong platform, something that couldn't scale. And that was the beginning of like, oh, that's not just being able to develop. That's when, the idea about being a solution architect or technical architect made more sense. But I was like, we cannot continue to move you forward in this platform. It won't, it's not, obviously not sustainable. That's why you're having it fail like multiple
Yeah.
times a week. And yet the person could build something and put it out there in the beginning, be like,
Mhm.
this is great, but they did not see the bigger picture. And then now here goes 9 months of investment, and they realize like, oh, we're kind of in a corner now. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's really significant.